Hi folks, this is Dana Wachs down at the Capitol. Today's October 22, 2015. Today we're doing a special edition of Wachs Talks. I've asked Katrina Shankland, the Assistant Minority Leader, to join me today to talk about really the horrific events that have occurred down here this week at the Capitol. We had three bills that are, in my opinion, and I'm quite sure in Katrina's opinion, are very dangerous for this republic and for elections and the process of elections in our state. These bills included the John Doe bill, the GAB reorganization, really destruction bill, and the campaign finance bill. So what do you think, Katrina, about this week's events?
Well, it's been a very tough week for the democratic process in the legislature, especially considering that the bills that we voted on this week will significantly alter the state of campaigns, elections, and our democracy for the future and potentially for generations to come. So I'm shocked by the Republican agenda, but I'm also very proud of Assembly Democrats for standing up against what I think is a very destructive agenda and doing the right and morally correct thing.
Well, which of these three bills, which do you think is the worst bill for elections?
Well, they're all destructive in their own ways, but the bill related to campaign finance really opens the floodgates to unlimited money from corporations, out-of-state billionaires, and wealthy special interests into our state to take over elections. So we can talk a little bit about how Assembly Democrats worked on the floor to fight this devastating legislation, but I think the general public should know what's at stake here. I think that out-of-state companies can basically come into small towns and take out city council members, mayors, county executives, school boards, county boards, and all for one purpose, whether it's if they have an agenda to do property development or to have a corporation take over or whatever it is. I think that there really is a lot at stake given this bill that passed last night.
And these corporate contributions or intrusions into the election process, I mean, these really come about as a result long-term of Citizens United and additional cases since then. Do you see anything dangerous about special interest groups running their own messages or wealthy people running their own messages as per this bill?
Well, I think the number one thing to think about when we look at this bill is it's unlimited money that's also secret. In most cases under this bill, these wealthy special interests who are taking over the message in a campaign don't even have to disclose who their donors are and who they are. And that says a lot. If someone has an agenda and they want to take over a school board, they won't even have to tell you who's paying for it. And so people should be very worried about not only the lack of transparency, but also the lack of accountability. It's really scary to think about candidates losing control over their message and having these outside groups from California or DC or Florida basically taking over a small town in Wisconsin and spreading their message.
You know, and this week we also faced a bill dealing with John Doe probes, really a rewriting of John Doe probes in this state. And historically those have been really the most effective tool in rooting out corruption in the political process. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I thought it was shocking to hear Republicans in the legislature this week defending what they think is a better process, which actually exempts politicians from being investigated from political crimes. I don't know anyone outside the legislature who wants politicians to have more privileges and who wants politicians to be exempt from investigations related to their crimes. So I thought it was frankly shocking to see legislators basically giving themselves more privilege than their own constituents. Have you heard from any of your constituents asking for you to carve out more power for yourself?
No, I've not run into that. And one of the things that worries me about this John Doe process is that at the very moment that more money than ever will be pouring into this building, we're taking away the oversight or the ability to investigate corruption in this building. And not only that, but the Republicans failed to, we offered amendments which would have allowed them to fully fund grand jury probes, which could effectively take the place of the John Doe probe, but they refused to do it. So they're leaving the public with nothing functionally or effective that'll be able to root out corruption in politics in Wisconsin.
So we have unlimited money in politics. We don't know where it's coming from. Basically, the money can come from any state. It can be secret. It can come from corporations or wealthy billionaires. And if politicians accept that money and they do something corrupt with it, we don't even have the best process anymore to investigate them for corruption. I think that's really scary. But to take it one step further, what did the Republicans do to the Government Accountability Board?
Yeah, isn't that something? They've repoliticized the Government Accountability Board. As it stands now, the GAB is run by retired judges oversee the process and investigations in GAB, and now it's going. How have they redesigned that, Katrina?
They've carved it into two commissions, one for ethics and one for elections, and they're basically making a nonpartisan government watchdog and turning it into a partisan lapdog with no teeth or enforcement mechanisms in place, like funding, for example. They have actually made it even easier for partisanship to come into the elections board. And I'm really worried about what that means for fair and competitive elections and what that means for corruption. If an agency that is charged with investigating corrupt politicians, like the Government Accountability Board, is changed into this lapdog, where you would actually have to go to the legislature to seek permission for funding for an investigation above $25,000, which, let's be honest, most of these corrupt politician investigations take months, if not years, and cost a lot of money to do. What is going to happen to all the politicians committing corrupt acts when there's no money to fund the investigation? Because guess what? The legislature is not going to say, yes, we can investigate you, if they're the ones who are being corrupt.
So let me get this straight. Let's say they find that politician A is likely on the take. Somebody's buying his or her votes. What do they have to do to get permission to get funding to fund that investigation? What part of the legislature do they go to?
They have to go to the Joint Finance Committee, which is the most powerful committee in the legislature. It's the Budget Committee, the Appropriations Committee. And guess what? The majority of the members on that committee are in the majority party. So if 12 members are saying no because a member of their own party is the one being investigated, how do you get an investigation? Answer is you don't. You've got zero.
So if, and let's hope this isn't the case, but let's say, the state of New York was run by a corrupt group of politicians for many, many years. They called it Tammany Hall. If that kind of an operation comes to Wisconsin, is it easier today or harder today to investigate and root that out based on these laws?
Based on these bills, it's harder, and let's take that one step further. Next Tuesday, the Assembly is taking up a bill that'll essentially gut civil service protections, and it'll make it even easier for the majority Republicans to hire whomever they want based on whatever criteria they deem, and corruption can continue. They can hire their best friends. There can be, money involved, and we'll never know because they've taken away the teeth from our ethics board. They've taken away our ability to investigate via John Doe investigations, and they've allowed for the Civil Service Protection Elimination Act, essentially.
So that's your update from the Capitol. This is Dana Wachs from the 91st Assembly District, interviewing Katrina Shankland, the Assistant Minority Leader. And that's the way things stand down here this week.
Thank you, Representative Wachs, for standing up for the people of Wisconsin. And I just want to let everyone know that Democrats will continue to fight for your free speech, for your equal protection under the law, and especially for fair elections, for open government, and for clean government. There's never been anything quite like this in the Capitol. This week has been devastating for our democracy, but we'll continue to stand up for the people, and we'll fight until we can make this a better place.
This is Dana Wachs. This is your Wachs Talks for this week, October 22, 2015. Let's hope things get better next week.